Hello and welcome into the Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of motorsports. Garth McMahon's here alongside Tommy Poole, and Andrew's here, but I don't know if he's going to join us at all or not. He's over there kind of doing his own thing, but he'll probably be with us later in the show when we talk about his kind of motorsports. We're going to change things up a little bit today. We're doing an hour show. We're doing a little bit more than NASCAR. I know we call this your first source for news and information in the world of motorsports, but up until now it's been all NASCAR, mainly because by the time we started doing the show, IndyCar was done, and we really didn't know much about the other motorsports for the most part. They were kind of off doing their own thing, but we've been studying, and we are adding in not only IndyCar, because they released their schedule for next season in this past week, but we're also adding in F1 and NHRA to this show for their own segments.
And there's a good rumor in IndyCar as well regarding the 500, so stay tuned for that segment too.
Yeah, Tommy's our resident IndyCar expert, so he knows all this stuff. I hadn't even heard about this. So, but we're going to start off. First segment here, we're doing trucks and Nationwide this weekend. Both of them were at Texas with the Sprint Cup Series. Kyle Busch sweeping both races, picking up his 70th career nationwide victory on Saturday night. And other than that, nothing else really of note in the nationwide race. Tommy, do you have a comment on that before we move into the truck race, which was a little more exciting?
Just typical nationwide race. King of the minors pulling it out again. I mean, and it's funny because he did that to himself. Mm-hmm. It's just hilarious to think that, that's what's on the thought of everybody's mind, and then for him to actually come out and say that, which, I'm not giving him any crap for it because it's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. To me, that actually kind of helped me like Kyle Busch a little bit more. I'm not saying that, he's my favorite out there. I'm just saying it kind of, because he was so arrogant to begin with, and that's why a lot of people don't like him. But then now that he's coming out to the media and kind of poking fun at himself, that just kind of, made some more people kind of really wrap their mind ahead just a little bit and, not scrutinizing. But, I don't think he's ever going to live that one down. Do you think, Garth?
Probably not. One other thing, though, before we move into the truck race, Chase Elliott all but wrapped up the championship after this race. Barring any problems in Phoenix, which I know is a big if, but he's run a really consistent season this year, and it would be really out of left field to see him get a DNF in Phoenix. Basically, all he's got to do is he's 48 points up right now in Regan Smith. If he finishes anywhere within 3 spots behind Regan or higher up, he will clinch the championship in Phoenix. So basically, if that may have been a little hard to understand, say Regan finishes in 10th. If Chase finishes in 13th without leading any laps, that still puts him 45 points up, leaving Phoenix. That's the normal point spread in one race from 1st to 40th in a nationwide race, so there's no way Regan can catch him in Homestead. So, and with the way Chase has been running, it'd be hard to say he's not going to wrap up this championship in Phoenix, or if not, he's going to be very, very close to it.
Let me put my argument in question form. How many DNFs has Chase Elliott had thus far this season?
I didn't look this up, but if I remember correctly, 0?
That's what I would say as well. Of course, there was two races I don't think I covered with you because my schedule. But up until that point, he recorded 0 DNFs. So therefore, my point is Chase Elliott is so good, and this kid, I know that you can make an argument now about, this, pressure that. But the thing is I like, and I've said this since day one when he came out and said it, I love his approach to this. My job is to get in a race car and drive. I'm not looking championship picture. I'm not looking at man, I'm good. I'm not looking at anything other than getting in the car, doing my job, and doing what I've done thus far. And it's been working for him. And if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right. You know, and it's nice that he has that attitude that he has no pressure on him, because it's funny. I don't know if you heard this. Ryan Newman, when he had a press conference earlier this weekend in Texas, he was asked if he had any pressure on him at this point in the chase. And he said, no, I don't have any pressure. Pressure's something that makes things explode. I don't have any pressure. Spoken like a true engineer.
True. Well, yeah, boiler up.
Yeah.
But, you know, also, I think the pressure didn't have him this week at Texas. I think it had something else, because stuff really did blow up. And it wasn't, and we got that lost in the wake of last night, too. And we'll get to that here in a minute. But also, some folks may have forgotten, because ESPN sure did, that there was a fight Friday night as well with the trucks.
And that was what I was going to try to segue in to the truck race with. Johnny Sauter and Jeb Burton got into a little bit of a tangle in the final laps in the truck race. They were both running well. I want to say they were both in the top 5. And something happened to where Sauter darted to the left out of turn 4 and came down across his teammate Jeb Burton's nose and ends up spinning himself into the infield grass on the front stretch. Well, for some reason, he took this as thinking that it was Jeb's fault and confronted Jeb on pit road. Jeb, after the race, said that if he looks at the replay, he's going to know that I didn't move at all. I didn't do anything to be a part of this, and he should know I don't race this way. And it's crazy that teammates are even going at each other right now.
Well, that just kind of shows that what pressure situation we're in. We're in crunch time, and I mean, I don't think anybody's safe right now.
But Johnny's basically eliminated from the championship at this point.
Well, I know, but the thing is it's like Junior in the Cup. You know, he's eliminated, yet if Brad and Jeff didn't go after it last night, I think he would have went after it with Jamie.
Yeah.
And the thing is both of those guys are out. But the thing is you get so frustrated there, and when things continue to happen like that, you just boil and boil and boil. And the thing is both of those guys aren't really, strong-worded individuals. They normally keep to themselves. And the thing is that happens to the people who that happens to is they keep things bottled up, and then one thing just pushes them off. And then so, you know, like this incident here, he could have went after him for, you know, incidents that happened 2-3 weeks later, even last season, you know, to be honest. So, I mean, it's not so much that, like, yeah, teammates, you know, they're not in the race here or something like that. It's just, you know, one of those things that just something pushed him over the edge.
Well, and it's funny because that's 2 weeks in a row Johnny Sauter's done that. He did that last week at Martinsville with Timothy Peters. Peters bumped him out of the way in the final laps when he was running second. Sauter ends up finishing like 7th because Peters had done a bump and run on him, and he wasn't happy with this, and he did basically the same thing with Timothy Peters last week.
Yeah, and that also will help too, because when you keep getting moved around and you feel that you're the guy that everybody's going after week in, week out, you get fed up with it as well. And I think that also what could have led to this is with the incident with Peters. You know, that was one. That one, I agree, that would make anybody mad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the whole thing, how Gordon started last night. But the thing is when that stuff keeps happening and then the next week somebody else does it to you, you're already tempers high. And the reason that you go out to somebody and you do something like that is to send a message. And you're not just sending a message to him, you're sending a message to the entire field.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I just think that it really does show that he's just, I mean, off a bad finish last week that kind of screwed him. He's already got a bad taste in his mouth for everything. And then, you know, just he was frustrated as well with his result here in Texas, and then it just led him to overboil.
Well, looking at one of the other championship contenders, because Sauter's basically been eliminated at this point. I'm not sure if he's mathematically eliminated. I haven't looked at that, but realistically, he's pretty much out of it at this point. I think it was like 60-some points back. He's out at this point. Bubba Wallace, though, following Martinsville, I was really excited to see that he, like I had been saying the past few weeks, had literally clawed his way back into championship contention. He was 22 points out heading into Texas after winning in Martinsville and was only 4 points behind Ryan Blaney for second. So he had really made it a three-man championship battle and was looking to get it even closer in Texas. He had probably the fastest car, maybe second to his teammate Kyle Busch, but I think at points he was faster than Kyle. But about the halfway point in the race, he blew his engine. And that has basically ended his title chances because I think he is 36 points out now. And that'd be a lot to make up in 2 races with as consistent as Matt Crafton has been lately.
Well, I mean, that brought it up. I think it was in Kentucky when we were talking about this with the Nationwide. How I made mention about this before, but we were texting back and forth. And you said something about, if Regan Smith runs this well all season, and stays this close to Elliott, then he can close the gap. The thing is if you want to run third, if you're running third every weekend, congratulations. But if Crafton's running first or second every other weekend that happens, it's pointless.
Right.
I mean, the only thing that you're doing is you're doing damage control. So it's not getting further out of hand, any further out of hand. Maybe like 3 or 4 more points extra. But, I mean, the thing is even if Bubba Wallace does this now and goes, well, not now, but if he did it in Texas, say he did blow his engine, but, well, no, that was a bad example. Say he finishes 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
If Crafton crashes out, that's still a really good day for Bubba Wallace, even though it doesn't sound like it. But the thing is you finished ahead of the guy you're trying to chase, and you finish that far ahead of somebody. So then you're just going to keep gaining. So now 22nd may sound like a bad day, but if Crafton finishes behind him, that's a good day all of a sudden.
Right.
Whereas if third place sounds like a great day, but if Crafton finished second, it's pointless. You're not doing anything but just chasing your tail.
Right. And in doing that has made this now basically a 2-man championship race between Matt Crafton and Ryan Blaney. And honestly, the way Ryan Blaney has been running lately, I really just want to say that this is a 1-man race, that Matt Crafton almost has this locked up. Because Ryan Blaney's been running well, but he consistently is finishing 2 or 3 spots behind Matt Crafton every week. It's like Regan Smith in the Nationwide Series. He's there, he's running well, but he can't finish ahead of Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
And, as much as I would like to see Ryan Blaney give Matt Crafton a run for his money, I haven't seen the finishes to tell me that it's going to happen.
I totally agree with you on that one. I really do think that it is Crafton this year. And the thing is you got to look at it too. You've got Crafton, he won last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Ryan Blaney, who is one of the younger stars.
Mm-hmm.
So that also brings, if it is a 2-man race, once you get to Homestead, who are you going to pick? Are you going to pick the guy who's been here before and doesn't bite off more than he can chew? Or are you going to bite off the little rookie who's going to sit there and, let his nerves get there? I've been in those positions. I mean, as much as you want to say, the nerves aren't going to affect me, they will. But, at the end of the day, that's what they're getting paid for, and they'll be able to overcome those as well. But it's just like, that's just besides the point. I just feel that because right now is what you're doing is you're just having to count all your eggs in your basket.
Mm-hmm.
And I would so totally pick Crafton over Blaney just because of the track record from experienced drivers to newbies.
Well, the interesting thing here is, as we wrap up this segment, if Matt Crafton is able to pull off this championship, he will be the first guy in Truck Series history to have back-to-back Truck Series championships. So a huge feat there looming possibly for Matt Crafton. That'll do it for us for Truck and Nationwide for tonight's episode. Stick with us around the corner, and we will talk about an action-packed Sprint Cup Series race in the next segment, so stay with us. You're listening to The Pole Position.
Was that a NASCAR race or was it a hockey game?
Well, we'll discuss that in the
And
next
I'm
segment.
okay to say that. It is okay for me to say that.
Yes. Yeah, let's go with that. This is The Pole Position. And welcome back to The Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of motorsports. And it really is motorsports tonight, not just NASCAR, as we talked about in the first segment. And we'll get into the non-NASCAR stuff in the next segment. This segment, though, we're just talking Sprint Cup because this was a crazy race in Texas. And the funny part about it is the first 2/3 of the race were tame. Not that much happened. And then all of a sudden, with about 100 laps to go, all heck broke loose. And you had a bunch of chase drivers all of a sudden having problems. You had the main story of the night on the first attempt for a green-white checkered. Brad Keselowski goes for a hole that he sees between Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, trying to go for the race lead, thinking with as far back in points as he is, he can take the lead right here, get a win, and it won't matter in Phoenix, and he's in Homestead. As he goes for the hole starts to close as Gordon starts to come back down, hits Gordon, cuts Gordon's left rear tire. About a half a lap later, Gordon can't hold on to it anymore and finally spins. And then this results in Gordon being very mad at Keselowski. Following the race, he pulls up next to Keselowski's car on pit lane, where Keselowski's car is supposed to be, because the top 5 cars always have to go through inspection on pit road before going back into the garage. So Keselowski's parked on pit road. Gordon, after finishing 29th after this, pulls up next to Keselowski, gets out. The crews start fighting before Gordon even walks up to Keselowski. He gets up there. They start talking. Keselowski, from the looks of things, kind of seemed to be blowing him off, starts to walk away. Then Kevin Harvick comes in, who had been standing in the background leaning on Keselowski's spoiler watching all of this, comes in, pushes Keselowski back into Gordon's arm range. Gordon grabs him, and there's just a gigantic melee. So, that being said, has Keselowski effectively made the entire field mad at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, and Gordon put this best in his interview, and it's really starting to just kind of resonate with, everything that's happened. How has he won a championship? I mean, the thing is, and first I want to get back to the accident that you described. Don't think that Gordon closed the gap. The reason Gordon came down is because Keselowski went straight into a turn, and Gordon came down because the track came down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you watch it, you can definitely see just Keselowski goes straight into turn 1. And, I mean, it's just, I'm just bad. I don't even know why. But the thing is I understand that you're trying to go for it, but you're ending another guy's day. And in my mind, I honestly do think that I think that he needs a penalty for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just feel that, like, it's okay that you're being aggressive, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to see those moves in the future. But the thing is you can't just go in there and be boneheadish and ruin somebody's day and possibly Gordon's future in Homestead, because he was setting up Johnson, and just because he didn't go to win it in turn 1 like Brad did, mm-hmm. doesn't mean Gordon didn't have a shot at all in the race win.
Right, and Gordon had basically had the best car ever since they had transitioned into the nighttime. Johnson had the best car in the first part of the race, but Gordon really had the best car in the latter part of the race as they transitioned into the nighttime and got more grip. So, in all likelihood, I hate playing the what-if game, but he probably would have eventually gotten around Johnson on that restart and won the race. The restart before that, he had gotten around, and he'd built like a 2-second lead in about 4 or 5 laps. and was setting sail on his way to win before that particular caution came out. And that particular caution ended up being his demise in that race, unfortunately. But, you know, I don't blame Jeff Gordon. I mean, he had every right to be mad about that.
No, I totally agree. And it's just, I mean, Brad just didn't learn his lesson in Charlotte, I guess. I mean,
I guess not.
it just kind of baffles me because, like, I understand for somebody to do that, but not a former world champion. Not only one, not only to ruin somebody else's day, but then also to act like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I guess now that I think about it, Stewart's acted like this for years. So,
but he's never really done things like that on track.
Right, he just reacts. That's
Right.
kind of the point that I'm making, just the reactions. But, I mean, motorsports is a very emotion-filled sport, and I'd be lying to you if I said that I never wanted to go and take something out on somebody. But actually, I'd probably be lying if I said that I had a race where I didn't want to go beat somebody afterwards. But anyway, that aside, that's not important right now. It's just kind of really just, I mean, you just don't, I don't know. I mean, when you go in, you've got to think, and I know that it's hard to when you get caught up in the moment, but you can't be ruining somebody's day just because it's boneheaded. You know, just because Gordon didn't want to risk it all or nothing with 3 laps to go doesn't mean he didn't have a car for the end.
Right.
And
now let me ask you this. Did Kevin Harvick have a place doing what he did, shoving Keselowski into the fight? He said afterward when he was interviewed about this that he didn't like the fact that Keselowski was starting to turn away and was going to walk away and let his crew deal with Gordon. He wanted to see, since Gordon was mad at Keselowski, he wanted to see Keselowski face him himself. So he went in there and said, hey, deal with this yourself, and pushed him toward Gordon. Did Harvick have a place in that?
did he have a place? No. But did he have a point? Yes.
Yes.
And I totally agree with that. I mean, and the thing is, and we've talked about this a lot, is you got to think that this is fantastic. So therefore, I would say, I mean, if I was NASCAR, I'd be giving Harvick a pat on the back right now. Now, in the public, you know, of course, they're saying, no, let's stop this and all this. But inside the trailer, they're saying, keep doing it, boys. I mean, when was it? Was it 2011 or 2012 when, you know, you had you had Newman in, Busch on things, both Busch brothers. You had, what was the big one in Texas? It was Gordon and Burton.
Oh, yeah. And then Gordon and Boyer at Phoenix.
Right.
Yeah.
But that year, they basically said, boys, have at it. Because the thing is when you turn, and it's great for the sport, too. Because when you get in, when you wake up in the morning, you turn on ESPN. Okay, and it's fantastic, too, the way that the races are because they're on Sundays. Well, people turn on ESPN before they leave the house to see if their local football team's doing any good or something like that, you know. And when they're doing there, if all they see is fighting and drama, which are 2 of the biggest categories in television and movies right now, is violence and drama and suspense. If those 2 is what everybody's liking, and they see that there's NASCAR fights and everything, and what is that, 2 and 3 weeks now? 2 and 4 weeks?
2 and 3 weeks, yeah.
2 and 3 weeks. I mean,
and they both involve Keselowski, coincidentally.
Right. Well, and the first one included Stewart too, so that was a good news story as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so the thing is just it's really starting to become a norm, and I know that publicly NASCAR is saying no, but the thing is it'll almost be take it like this, and I know you want to add this point. I hate it about what Robin said.
Robin Pemberton?
Yeah, about boys, we're not hockey. The thing is if you, as an association, say, okay, it's fine to fight, and you make that clear on the public, then the fans won't care. ESPN won't cover it.
Right.
You know, you don't wake up every morning and there's a hockey fight on TV because that's the new norm.
Right.
So the thing is by NASCAR coming out into the public saying, boys, cut it out, but they're really not going to do anything big. That still gives the public a sense that, oh, this is highly illegal, but they still do it.
Right.
And then that's what creates us to get all hyped because we're like, oh, they're not supposed to be doing that. But in reality, it's not hurting NASCAR one bit.
Yeah. You make a really good point there. We need to move on though and cover the other chase drivers in this race. There were other chase drivers in the race besides Brad Keselowski, Jeff Gordon, and Kevin Harvick. Believe it or not. Really interesting day though, because going into this race, you had a 33-point spread from Jeff Gordon in first to Kevin Harvick in eighth. Leaving this race, the only guys that did well in this race, basically in terms of chase drivers, were Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, and Carl Edwards, which amazed me because I don't know where he came from. Somehow he mustered up a top 10 when past halfway in the race, he was 2 laps down around 30th and somehow comes back and gets a top 10 and keeps himself in championship contention. Joey Logano, it was around halfway in the race. He blew a tire and wrecked. He's leading the points leaving Texas. He blew a tire and wrecked in Texas. That's how crazy and convoluted this points is right now leaving Texas. Denny Hamlin didn't have a fantastic day. He's tied with Joey Logano for the lead right now. Ryan Newman's 2 points back. He blew a tire at one point in the race. He ended up 15th, and he's still third, 2 points off the lead. And then you've got Jeff Gordon, who somehow managed to stay in the top 4, but he's now 12 points back, and he's only 1 point above the cutoff, which is Matt Kenseth. I mean, it's crazy how jumbled up this point system is. You got an 18-point spread between 8 guys, and we could have any combination of these four of these 8 guys leaving Phoenix going to Homestead. Phoenix is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is that's basically a norm in NASCAR. I mean, and that's what.
Well, this year it is. It hadn't been before this year.
It's been like that for a while. I mean, because when was it? It was a couple years in the duel. I remember Brian and Brad Keselowski were both in the same duel.
Mm-hmm.
Brad crashes and then comes into pit lane. He just spun, causes yellow. The restart, Brian ends up crashing. Well, on that restart, guess who was in the top 5? Brad Keselowski. I mean, the thing is, and that's so unheard of in other sports.
But that's Daytona too. I mean, you can't really compare Daytona to Texas.
That was just one of the other. I was going to get into more of different tracks, like Michigan this year. Johnson breaks a shifter in his car, and he goes down pit road 2 or 3 times with wrenches in his car fixing his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes out and gets a top 10. Pocono, and it's happened, I think, last year too. It's happened a lot there where he goes out and he spins at Pocono or he hits the wall or something, and then he comes back and still finishes in the top 10. And I know that's Jimmy Johnson and stuff, but I'm just saying that in IndyCars, once you barely tap the wall, you're done for the day.
Right. Speaking of Jimmy Johnson, almost forgotten in all of this is he won the race. And it was his 70th career win. I mean, that's a milestone in and of itself, and he's kind of been overshadowed here because of the whole Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski thing, but that's a big deal. 70 career wins?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, he's a heck of a driver, and I mean, I think it's really funny that, I just find it so hard to believe that he is out. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that, and I know we've been saying all year, like, oh, well, he's just not on top of his game. He's never on top of his game until now.
Right.
And even the funny thing is, too, is I'd like to figure this up afterwards, is how close would he be if we were on the old point structure? Because if you think about it, he really doesn't get hot until these last 3 races.
I don't think super close because he didn't do well in Martinsville last week. So I think he'd still be fairly far back even after this win.
It'd be interesting to see what he does at the next 2 tracks, though. Phoenix, he's pretty good at.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, this is, he really doesn't make any. I mean, he holds his own, but he really doesn't make a whole lot of noise until
mm-hmm.
Texas in these last 3. So
right.
We'll see.
Well, that will do it for us for a wild weekend of NASCAR from the Texas Motor Speedway. Hey, if this is what Texas is like, I'm excited to see what Phoenix and Homestead are going to be like, because it's going to be absolutely crazy. So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk some non-NASCAR, I believe for the first time on this show, and we're going to talk IndyCar. They put out their schedule for next year and a couple rumors that Tommy apparently heard, so we'll be back in a moment. This is the Pole Position.
Alrighty, welcome back to Pole Position here. As Garth made mention here earlier, said that we are doing something new now. We are talking about more motorsports, so he does not lie like he normally does. We're actually talking more than just NASCAR, so we're going to kick it off with IndyCar, something I've been really eager about, and I still think that I pull it into every show, I think. Somehow, some way. So, but anyway, nothing wrong with that. So let's get into the news real quick. Some of this is old news. We'll go from older to newer, but since we've never covered it, just want to lay it all out there. That way we can cover it all. The young Jack Hawksworth has moved from Herta. He is going to make AJ Foyt Enterprise a two-car team this year. They'll have Takuma Sato again as well as Hawksworth. Brian Herta Autosports. Steve Newey, there is a rumor that he is splitting with Brian Herta. Brian Herta and Steve Newey had owned that team together in a joint partnership. That is rumored to be coming to an end. A lot of the people in the garage of the 98 car are saying that they're getting their resumes ready to go elsewhere. They think the team's going under. However, Herta has made public and clear that he is actually wanting to have a two-car team. So, but of course, he's always wanted to have a two-car team ever since they won the 500 in 2011. So then with that being said, which, it does make sense, and we'll also bring this open for discussion as well about two-car teams compared to just the one-car team. Also moving on is Andretti and Hinchcliffe have parted ways. James Hinchcliffe is now going to take over the number 77 car for Schmidt-Peterson. That is the spot that was left vacant by Simon Pagenaud when he decided to go to Penske. Hinchcliffe has left Andretti. Andretti has made it also quite clear that they want Hinchcliffe back in a couple of years. None of the PR sites will open up to me at least about what happened. I did kind of drop the UFD sponsorship name. That really, they said it really wasn't too much of that, but they are wanting an F1 driver. He's been testing here for a little bit, as well as some of the Firestone Indy Lights guys as well, but really those guys have not made a whole lot of noise other than Carlos Munoz. It is also rumored that Hinch was a little upset and why he left, a rumor of why he left. We do not know if he is upset with the deal or not, but the reason he felt that he left was Ryan NHRA and Marco Andretti always got the good things. They always had the good cars week in, week out, and he felt as the guinea pig with him and Carlos Munoz. As we get into the big rumor, this is just a rumor as of right now. My source is a guy who is always in the garages. He normally has a list of a lot of good things that will be surfacing here soon. He's done it in May as well. About this time last year, he also mentioned the new qualifying format, which was where the first day results just kind of lock you into a position, and then they get thrown out overnight. Then Sunday is what really locks you into the field. He had that, and a lot of it was actually adapted and turned into the rules for this year. The rumor states that they are going to totally get rid of qualifying, and what they will be doing is they will have a 50-mile race for qualifying. 50-mile race for qualifying on the oval. That is the new rumor. There's not specifics on if they're going to let all 33 drivers go. They tried this 2 years in Iowa, and it turned out halfway decent. The way that worked is they had 3 races. The first race and they don't qualify for this qualification race. What they do is they take their practice times from any session or the last session or whatever. So how this worked in Iowa is practice 2, they took their times and they split them up. The first 10 race and it's normally the last race, and that is for positions 1 through 10. The second race, or actually it would end up being like the first race, is the people in positions 11 and down, all the way down the field in the odd number. And then the second race would be all the people from 12 down in the evens numbers. And then what they would do is the odd race would only race for the odd positions, and the evens would race for the even positions. Now, the question I have for both of you is, how do you guys feel about opening the track for almost another oval race? Do you think that's messing too much with history?
I don't think it's messing too much with, well, it's messing with history, but from a spectator's point of view, being able to go and watch basically what's just another race before the big race, it's kind of like pregame, but a little more exciting, because with qualifying, they go out and they do a few laps and they come back into the garage and they wait for someone to set another time. And if someone sets a better time, they can go, oh, well, we can do better than that. So they go back out and set another time. Now, that's not as exciting to watch from the stands. If you're in the garage and you're the driver or you're part of that team, that's exciting. But for it to be like a small 50-mile race for qualifying, then you as a spectator would get to go and watch what's basically just a small race. So you get the advantage of exciting race stuff before the race. Does that make sense?
Well, is it just me, or does it sound like a shortened version of the Gatorade Duel at Daytona that NASCAR does before the Daytona 500, the qualifying races? That's exactly what it sounds like to me.
Essentially, that's how it is, but I mean, the big thing is, and they dealt with this when they were doing the oval, is don't mess with tradition. I mean, there's people that are pissed off still about running the road course. And I mean, the thing is for me, a kid who's grown up with it, and all the people that I've talked to that share the same passion for the sport as much as I do, and who have been around the 500 and that tradition forever, we all hate it. And the reason being is we just don't. The reason that the 500 is so special is because it's a one-time thing, one time a year. And it just, I feel if you keep adding to it, you're just going to kill the tradition. And the Speedway and IndyCar cannot lose. They cannot stand to lose this tradition. I mean, because really, if you think about it, other than, the IndyCar faithful, if you would, IndyCar doesn't exist. I mean, the series does not exist. It's the Indy 500. I mean, that's what everybody is, and, that's how everybody feels. But, I mean, for me, I just feel that you're tainting and you're playing around with tradition, and I just don't like it. Garth, you may know this. When did the duels start in Daytona? Did they start the very first year, or did they end up adding them along sometime, and how did that mess with tradition, if any?
I think they came in later. I don't know when. I can look that up and let you know here in a second, but I don't know when they actually came in. I know they weren't there in the very beginning, but I can look and see when they came in.
I know that you're a little upset about this because it's messing with tradition, but there's nothing wrong with adding to the Indy 500. They shouldn't take anything away from it, but the simplistic way of qualifying the way it is now, to turn it into a small race to see who can qualify, I think that as a driver, that would be fun, because you get a small little competition and be like, oh, I'm going to qualify ahead of this guy, so you just try and beat him. And if they let all the drivers go out and do it at the same time, then you can kind of get a feel for how everyone's going to react on the track when race day comes, when you have to do the full 200 miles.
is actually the
200 laps.
complete opposite way around. Drivers hate it.
They do?
Crews hate it. The only people that like it is the people who really are not tied in with the sport as much and who aren't tied in with this tradition. Second thing is that's what makes the 500 so great as well, is because you go out and there's 2 weeks, give or take. Ever since they screwed the whole month up, it's kind of hard to say how many days, and especially with Mother Nature and the rain. There's about 2 weeks of track activity, and you always see all these cars running and, turning 100 laps in a day just for one car. I mean, they run, 1,500 to about 2,200 or 2,500 laps a day. And then, you see all this and you see the speeds, but you never see all 33 of them in a group together. And that's also what adds to the excitement. That's what adds to those kids in the bleachers, sitting there on practice day. And then just to think the next day that you're going to see all 33 of these guys run together is just ridiculous. I don't like it. I really do not like it.
Well, I think they're going to give it a try for a few races, and most likely it'll bring in a little bit more money because people are going to want to come see the qualifying, and they'll treat it as a way to see the race without having to pay for the race. So,
well, I did find the first year that they ran what is now the Budweiser duels, and it actually was the first year of the Daytona 500, 1959. It started out as a 100-mile race, and it's now 150. But, yeah, it's been every year since the first 500.
And then what about the Gatorade duels? Did you know anything about that?
That's the same race.
yeah, you said it was.
Oh, I'm getting it mixed up with that very first. It's almost like an all-star race. You know what I'm talking about? The Sprint Unlimited, I think it is now.
It is now.
Okay, that used to be the Budweiser shootout forever. Okay, that's what I thought those were. Okay, so anyway, what I'm saying there is that's fine. I mean, because you don't have anything to screw up with. Andrew, if they try this for a couple years, it could be too late. It can take just 1 year for them to kill it. And I mean, they cannot kill it. Because if they kill it, I mean, IndyCar's screwed now, and then so is the Motor Speedway. And I mean, when you have the biggest spectacle in racing at your front door, I'd be doing everything that I can to try and not kill it, not to add to different things that tick people off. But the thing is they can't just try it for a couple years because that's already going to turn all the people who love this tradition. That's going to turn them off and turn them away. But whereas if you go in and then also with your price thing, they can see it a lot cheaper. They're going to run that way up, and they're not going to let that happen. And also, if they do let that happen, that's another reason that it's going to kill. Because now if people go in and say, hey, well, I saw, the 20-lapper, which is just as cool, now I don't really need to come in and see the 500.
But
and then that's going to...
There are people like you who live at the track, and they've got their heart dead set on watching the real race and could care less about this little qualifying race. And I know for a fact you are one of those people who will definitely show up to the race, rain, shine, cars could be on fire, and you'd still want them to race or something like that.
Well, and I've said this too, and I mean it probably won't be true, but the whole thing is if this goes through, if they end up doing this, I might just ditch IndyCar and come to NASCAR. I mean, that's how mad.
Open arms.
That's how mad that would make me. But so anyway, with that being said, there is also another news event that just came out as well as this rumor kind of got overshadowed. The schedule was released. And there's another thing that I don't like, but since we are getting close to time, I am not going to be able to get on one of my little soapboxes. The race is starting. The series starts March 8th, and that is in São Paulo in Brazil. Sao Paulo. They say it both ways. Anyway, the thing is what I find so interesting is they've raced in March at Brazil the last couple years, except for last season, took a hiatus. Thing is they've raced on Monday and Tuesday nights before there. You know why? because they couldn't race on Sunday because of the stupid monsoon. You know what I figured out in some research? March is monsoon season in Brazil. So now why do you schedule a race in monsoon season? I mean, that just kind of baffles me. Anyway, the bigger story is most tracks are returning. Houston's out. That's really Houston GP is one of the bigger ones. Pocono is probably in its last year, and they are ending the season in Infineon. So they're ending on a road course in Sonoma. So that's IndyCar. That's all. Stay with us. We will be talking about Formula One and the NHRA in Las Vegas this weekend. And Pole Position continues. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Pole Position. Again, we are in the new format tonight where we are talking about all motorsports, like Garth has mentioned all year, but this is actually the first time that we're doing it, so Garth is no longer a liar. He's not a bad person, he's just a liar. Anyway, moving on. Fourth and final segment of the show. Thank you for listening. We are going to start this segment, the Formula One and the NHRA segment, off with Formula One. A lot going on, a lot about Marussia. And we'll start also old news, but since we haven't covered it, just want to lay it all on the line. Jules Bianchi did not the Jules Bianchi crash, in Sochi, that was big, sent him to the hospital. He is still in critical yet stable condition. You can keep tabs on his progress off the Marussia site. His family sends about a weekly update, I think, that I saw today
I'd like to
on
point
the
out
site.
that the race that he crashed was in Japan, not Sochi.
Yes, it was Japan. I apologize. I remember that now.
The Marussia
anyway,
team kept his car ready to race in ready-to-race condition in the Sochi paddock garage area for him with like a tribute or whatever.
Yeah, so anyway, moving on. That race was slick conditions. The whole kind of big scandal over this thing was there are two rumors to have circulated around that Jules Bianchi did not slow down under double yellow after Adrian Stell spun off the track. The second is the team urged Jules to go faster to keep Marcus Ericsson, the Caterham, behind him. The team is outraged right now that those rumors are going around with their driver in severe critical condition. The whole thing with this accident is they were under yellow, and Jules shot off the track while Adrian's car was being lifted above the tire barrier with one of these big cranes, and Jules' car went under the crane. And I believe they said he hit his head, correct? He hit his head on because he basically went under. So it's almost like you going down the interstate and going under a semi. You'll hit your head and have trauma there. So they've put him in a hospital in Japan. That's why that now makes sense. A lot of this I've just kind of found, trying to keep up with all these different things, I've fall kind of behind. So if I say something misleading like I just did, please cut me a little slack. Just let me know and recorrect me. So anyway, the team is really upset that all this stuff is happening. Evidence has been given to the FIA. The FIA has checked the telemetry, and they have ruled that Jules did slow down on the yellows. For the second one, the team urged Jules to go faster under the double yellow. FIA got a copy of all the radio communications as well as written in the radio transmissions, and they have also proved that to be false as well. Marussia is still staying in the news, this time with Caterham. Both teams are under money issues. They also are in the wake of a scandal of sharing material in the wind tunnel. They go to the same wind tunnel, So they've been giving and sharing information which is illegal in F1. They did not participate in the USA GP in Austin. They did not participate, one, because of the scandal, and two, because of the money not being there. And the money that Caterham is lacking in their F1 program is actually a effect in them actually Caterham the big picture, and Andrew will share more on that here in a minute. But their big big news actually coming out of Austin is the teams will not be penalized for missing the USGP. The reason they would be penalized is that is illegal under Article 13.2. It states all drivers and teams must run every race that is on the schedule that they sign up for. Caterham stated that they will probably not return the rest of the season. Marussia will return one car, and that would be in Abu Dhabi. With the season ending, they are in Brazil next weekend. Moving on as well, Perez is handed a penalty for Brazil for reckless driving in the Adrian Still crash, and do you pronounce his name Vernay or Verge? I've heard it two different ways.
I'm not sure how you pronounce his.
It's Eric Jean Verge for Red Bull, the Toro Rosso team. He's given a 5-second post-race penalty for Grosjean, the incident with Grosjean. Hamilton won. Rosberg came in second. That's just the typical 2014 season. Hamilton now leads the series by 24 points over his teammate Nico. That is 1 point shy of a race win. And then it's just a two-horse race. Ricciardo is 78 points off of Rosberg, which he's not going to get first or second. So then the race is there for third. Valtteri Bottas, the Williams driver, is 59 points off of Ricciardo. So then that point is actually locked up as well, pretty well. But then it gets interesting from 4th to 6th. Right now they read Valtteri Bottas in 4th, Sebastian Vettel in 5th, and Fernando Alonso in 6th. Vettel is 6 points off Bottas, and Alonso is tied with Vettel. So that will get really interesting with 2 races to go as well. We move into constructor points. That is not a fight at all. Mercedes has locked it up. They've got 608 points. Red Bull has 363. That's a difference of 245 points. There is a battle in the field a little bit with Ferrari in 4th right now. They have 196. McLaren is 49 points off of Ferrari, and Force India is 24 points off McLaren. So that is a little bit of a tight battle in the Constructor Championship. Another news surfacing after Austin is Marcus Ericsson, the Caterham driver, is to sign with Sauber for the 2015 season. Now, Andrew Moore has more news on the whole Caterham fiasco, if you'd like to call it that.
So, with the whole money issue and the fact that Caterham has been accused of wrongdoing and going against the motorsport code, or the International Motorsport Code, of sharing details and all that stuff. Marussia and Caterham have been sharing the same wind tunnel company, the Aerolab, and basically the Aerolab people and both the racing teams have been illegally sharing information with each other. So you can't do that, and this is a little upsetting to the Marussia team because the Caterham team came in and they've basically stolen their aerodynamic designs from the Marussia team. Now, with the whole Marussia team not being able to race, that's okay because their best driver, the Russian Danny Kvyat, will be moving up to Red Bull Infinity next year. So he will definitely have a spot in the F1 circuit next year. He will be taking Sebastian Vettel's spot, who will most likely take Kimi Räikkönen's spot in the Ferrari F1 team. If he does make the move to Ferrari, he will then be the highest paid motorsport driver in the world with $80 million per year that he races with them. Back to the Caterham thing affecting not just the racing team. Caterham has decided they were going to move to the United States recently and sell their track day roadsters here to the American public. But with this whole financial fiasco, it's starting to hurt their actual vehicle production company. They say that it won't affect it at all, but the more serious this gets, the more threatened the actual Caterham automotive company will be. So there's a good chance that all of the Caterham vehicles, like the Lotus 7 and the RS 500, definitely will not be sold here in the States. They'll have to pull out of that. And there's a good chance that they may be shut down for good over in the UK.
As always, the informal Andrew Moore, we do appreciate that. We finally got him in on something that he's actually well aware of.
That's hard to do.
No, it's good. It's just I knew it was there. Formula One is his strong suit, and we'll continue to do this into the offseason as well as next year, and keep that in mind. Switching gears to the NHRA in Las Vegas, record-breaking days. It will go first for Funny Car. Matt Hagan set a record. His ET, that's the time that they run down, was a 3.983, and that is in a Funny Car. That is ridiculous. Top speed of that run was 322 miles plus, or 0.42 miles per hour. Dale Warstrom ends up beating John Force in the final. Force had the best reaction time of the event in the final with a .044. Warstrom had a .074, where he was pretty consistent there all day. Right now, the points, Matt Hagan leads with 2,510 points. John Force is off him by 21 points. That is really the only, it's a two-car race. Courtney is in third off 121 points. Tommy Johnson Jr. is fourth with 148 points off. Robert Hyde is only 2 points off of Johnson in fifth. Dale Warstrom with the win sneaks into sixth. He's 169 points back off of Hagan. Into Top Fuel, J.R. Todd records the lowest ET time of the event with a 3.732. Keep in mind, the reason all the record setting was happening here in Vegas, and it mostly took place on Saturday in their first and second qualifying run. The reason being is it was in the low to mid 50s in Vegas, and that is during the day, which is very unlikely. The reason it was so cold is because they had 30-mile-an-hour winds behind the cars, which is causing for the speeds. Created quite the show out in Vegas. Continuing with Top Fuel, Spencer Massey wins. He beats J.R. Todd. Spencer Massey led in reaction time and top speed for the dragsters in the event. The reaction time was a .035, and the top speed was a 330.88 miles per hour. His teammate, Tony Schumacher, also set a 330 for top speed, but it was then beat in the second session by Massey. So right now, with the standings, Tony Schumacher leads with 2,501 points. Spencer Massey is second, and really, it's not even a two-car fight for the dragster. Spencer Massey is 109 points off of Schumacher. It tightens up down the field. J.R. Todd only 3 points off of Massey. He's back 112 from Schumacher. Sean Langdon is 135 points off of Schumacher, and Doug Coletta is only a point off Landon with 135 points off of Schumacher. Other events happening in Vegas sanctioned by the NHRA. Erica Ender-Stevens for Pro Stock. She ends up getting the win. Jason Line was second. He is now 17 points off Erica Ender-Stevens. Interesting story there as well, as Jason Line was on Erica's old team, and so he's the one that kind of spoiled Erica in the postseason, if you will, a couple years back, as well as stole her Wally in Indianapolis a few years back in the same year. Pro Stock Motorcycles, Andrew Hines gets the win on the Screamin' Harley. He gets the win for Vegas. He is now 92 points ahead of his teammate Eddie Krawick, and that is probably only a one-horse race as well. So that's going to do it here for Pole Position. This time we got to all motorsports, and we will continue to do so. Thank you for listening, and join us again next week.